Hey everyone, if you listen to the live Google Hangout that Spada, Ryan, and myself did a few days ago, then you may have heard us mention, or at least me mention, the game Forbidden Island. Now this game retails for around $15. I picked this one up at Meijer. I know Meier's not everywhere here in the country, but this is also a worldwide game. And like I said, it comes to about $15 depending on where you buy it. If you're into board games, I would highly recommend picking this up. If you've played Pandemic, this was created by the same guy. He also created another game called Forbidden Desert. And if you pick any of them up and don't currently own one, I would recommend picking this one up first to see if you like this style of gameplay. I find this game to be quite addictive, and depending on how many people are playing, and I've never really played it with more than just two people, it can last 20 minutes or so. I think with more people, it actually goes a little bit longer because it gets a little bit harder. But it says 2 to 4 players, ages 10 and up. The general gist of this game here is there are 24 tiles that represent your game board, and you randomly shuffle them up, and you set them up into this. Let me see if the game board's in the back here, and the full thing isn't. You set it up essentially into a 4x4 grid, and then there are 2 tiles that you add to the top, 2 that you add to the bottom, and then 2 that you add to the left and the right. And you essentially get what is like a cross pattern for your game board. Now, when this was released outside the United States, the manufacturer included some additional game board setups that were not included here in the US version. So some people found that online on Board Game Geek, and they decided to share some of those variants. But in doing so, there were a number of people who decided that they or felt that they could make the game a little bit better. So that's where we got this fan expansion pack that I want to discuss. And I've got the cards right here. Now, if you're wondering where you can get this, I'll post a link here inside of the video. The cards are, like I said, are fan made, and you can actually go to BoardGameGeek.com and the Forbidden Island forum and actually download the cards there. Or you can also use artscow.com, and they already have an order type thing already set up, so that you can just create your cards there and have them printed, which is what I did, and that's where this case came from. You can actually read this. It says Arts Cow on it. And I've got my cards here, and they're really nice quality, by the way. They look like they actually almost came with the game itself. The only difference is the actual game cards have a little bit of a texture to them, whereas these are just kind of flat, sort of like a playing card. Okay, so let me shuffle or get the cards, not shuffle them, but get the cards into separate piles here. So there's 4 separate cards here, or types of cards. Now the expansion set, if you purchase every card in the expansion set, or print out every card in the expansion set, has, I think, 5 different types. One of them I didn't bother using because I wanted to actually try out the fan expansion first to see how this would go. So, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But so, like I said, the US version of the board game only includes one board layout, and that's sort of the cross pattern. If you get the fan expansion, however, there's a number of patterns that you can use. Some that were included in the version that was released overseas, and some that are just fan-made. So I'm going to go through those here real quick. Now these cards also show the difficulty level, which is kind of interesting. My girlfriend and I just played this game with the expansion yesterday, and what we do is we randomly just draw one of the board setup cards and then just go with that. So the difficulty is just sort of selected at random. So the first one here is the Bay of Gulls, which is kind of interesting. We have the Bridge of Horrors. We have Bone Island. We have Coral Reef. We have Davy Jones' Locker. That one's also pretty interesting. This one is Treasure Island. This one here is Parley Peninsula. This here is Volcano Island. This one here is Mutiny Towers. Here is Skull Island. This one here is Roasted Refugee. This here is Shipwreck Bay. This is Harpoon Hideout. This here is Palm Springs, kind of in the shape of a palm tree there. This one here is Hangman's Harbor. This is Island of Death. We have the Arch of Fate. This here is Anchor Bay. This here is Atoll of Decisions. This one seems like an extremely hard one. This here is Barbary Coast. This is Forbidden Island. That's just the general setup, which was also included inside of the expansion set here. So you see your 4x4 grid, and then you've got the 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, 2 on the left, and 2 on the right here to get that sort of a cross pattern. This one is Perilous Peaks. This here is a Walk the Plank. And then we have Island of Shadows. And then the last one here is Octopus Bay, which I just played yesterday, and it can get kind of hard depending on where your tiles actually fall within the design here. So those are the variant cards for the board setup, and here's what the back of those look like. So there are those. Let me set those aside. Now, also included in the fan expansion are these treasure cards. The general gist of the game here is you have this board that represents an island, and you're trying to capture or reclaim 4 treasures, and you need to do so before the island actually sinks. Now, in the general game, once you collect a treasure, it doesn't really do anything. You just kind of hold on to it. So some of the fans here decided to create some treasure cards. And what they do is they actually give you a power depending on what treasure you're holding on to. So the first here is the Crystal of Fire. And this says the player who holds this treasure may spend 1 matching treasure card and 1 action to pass a card from any player to any other. So that is the Crystal of Fire. Then we have the Statue of the Wind. And this says the player who holds this treasure may spend 1 matching treasure card and 1 action to fly any player to any tile. Then we have the Ocean's Chalice. And this says the player who holds this treasure may spend 1 matching treasure card and 1 action to draw 2 less flood cards at the end of their turn. So as you play the game, you're also drawing flood cards. And when you draw a flood card, you either flip a tile over to show that it's actually flooded, and then you can't navigate to it. Or if it's already flooded and you draw the card, then you actually remove the tile from the game. And with this allows you to draw less of those cards on your turn. And then the last treasure card here is the Earthstone. And that says the player who holds this treasure may spend 1 matching treasure card and 1 action to shore up any tile on the island. And shore up means if the card is already, or if one of your tiles is already flipped over to represent the fact that it's flooded, you can shore it up and flip it back over so that it's no longer flooded. So those are the treasure cards. It's kind of nice to have these because, like I said, in the regular game, the treasures don't actually do anything other than the fact that you're just trying to collect them and then get off the island before it floods. So having the treasure and then having the ability to do something with it, kind of nice. So the next set of cards here are Challenge and Chance cards. Now the Challenge cards, if you play with those, there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 7 or 8 of those. And if you decide to play with one, you draw one at the beginning of the game, and then you do what it says throughout the course of the game. So I'll read these here rather quickly. The first challenge is not so fast. It says adventurers may spend an action to allow any one player to play a special action card. The next one is flash flooding. During setup, sink the first 2 tiles drawn and flood 8 tiles. If one of the sinking tiles would cause the player to lose, flood it and sink the next one instead. Immediately shuffle the flood cards back into the deck. The next one is the powers that be. After collecting a treasure, immediately move to that treasure's other corresponding tile if able. Sink the tile that the treasure was on. Heavier than it looks. For every treasure an adventurer possesses, the number of actions available on their turn is reduced by 1. Players who end their turn on Fool's Landing, and Fool's Landing is the tile you're trying to get to actually get off the island once you have all 4 treasures. You may deposit 1 treasure on its tile, meaning if you have 2 treasures, your turns are reduced by 1 for each treasure. In the game, you can have 3 actions per turn. So if you have 2 treasures, you'll really only have 1 action that you can do on your turn until you get to Fool's Landing and deposit a treasure. And then for every treasure you deposit, you get one of your actions back. Chance Circumstance. And let me read that one here last. So the next one here is Vanishing Resources. Each time the treasure deck is emptied, randomly remove 2 treasure cards from the discard pile from the game. The two cards must be different from each other. It's a tough job. Each adventurer's special power may be used no more than 4 times over the course of the game. Players can rotate their power cards to help keep track of this. Adventurers may not use their special powers once their starting location sinks into the abyss. Here or there, during setup, place each treasure figurine on the first of their corresponding tiles to be placed. Treasures may only be captured from the tile on which they are located. Adventurers may spend an action to move all treasures to their other corresponding tiles. Do not move treasures whose other tiles have already sunk into the abyss. And then the last challenge card here is Chance Circumstance, and that says shuffle the entire challenge deck into the treasure deck for the rest of the game. Use the chance side of these cards. So each one of these cards has a chance side. So this is the challenge, and this is the chance. So let me go ahead and read the chance ones as well. So these get stuck inside of the treasure card pile, and you select these just like you would a treasure card. So the first chance here is a skeleton key. It says you may collect a treasure by removing this card and any 3 treasure cards from your hand from the game. Covet. A player holding this card and owning at least 1 treasure can no longer trade cards or discard this card. Tidal Wave. When drawn, draw double the number of flood cards this turn. Players may discard 2 treasures to protect their tiles and tiles adjacent to them. Unprotected tiles flood or sink. Discard this card to the treasure discard pile. Desperation. As a special action, all players remove their special power cards from the game, and you gain a special power card of your choice from those that remain. And the special power that it's talking about here is the role you take on during the game. And I'll get to those in just a second. Whirlpool. When drawn, players collectively choose 1 tile to sink. Shore up all adjacent tiles. Landslide. When drawn, if less than 3 treasures have been collected, discard this card and draw another. Otherwise, slide all tiles inward to form a shape as close to a square as possible and place this card next to the island. From this point onward, players only have 2 actions each turn. Meditate. When drawn, increase the flood level by 1 and place this card next to the island. From this point onward, the maximum hand size is 6. And Cannibalism. When drawn, all players discard cards equal to how many players share their tile and are adjacent to them. Discard this card to the treasure discard pile. So those are the chance and challenge cards. Set those aside. And then last but not least, at least in the expansion set that I printed out, are the role cards, or special power cards, as that one card there referred to it as. So in the regular game of Forbidden Island, you have 6 different roles, and I don't remember what they all are off the top of my head. Guess I could open it up here and look. Luckily, they're right here on top. So you can be an engineer. An engineer says shore up 2 tiles for 1 action. That'd be the special power. You can be a messenger. You can be a navigator. You can be a pilot, and the pilot is one of the best roles to actually be in the game. You can be a diver. This is also a great role to be. Or you can be an explorer. And those are the 6 roles that come with the game here. Put all that stuff back in the case here. Now the fan expansion pack, however, includes a number of different roles that you can be as well. There is the carpenter. There is the sandbagger. There is the cartographer. There is the driver. There is the hunter. There's the guide. There's the cryptologist. There's the spelunker. There is the strategist. There is the survivalist. There's the trader. There's the rock climber. The excavator. The captain. The bricklayer. The archaeologist. And the doctor. Now, there's also a few more roles that I didn't actually have printed out. And the reason for that is if you purchase these from artscow.com, which again is where I did, you can only order, the maximum you can order is 52 cards for a deck. So with the variant deck, the treasure deck, the chance, and the challenge cards, I can only select however many, I don't know how many I have here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I can only select 17 of the roles, which are fine because, like I said, I wanted to try this out with the fan expansion first, play a few games, and see how it went. Maybe I'll purchase the additional ones. I haven't quite settled on that yet. Again, I haven't played using all the new rules yet, so but we'll see how that goes. Now, at the beginning of this, I said there were some additional cards that I hadn't printed. The special rules were some of them. There's also another card called the Trader card, or the Trader deck. There's a couple of cards that are made up of, well, the Trader deck's made up of a couple of different cards. And I wasn't sure on that one. I read the rules on how to play with that, and it seems like it changed the game too much. So I wasn't interested in printing that out. But I may purchase the additional roll cards that I hadn't gotten yet. So overall, this cost me, well, I guess let me first say that the cards, again, are available on BoardGameGeek.com, and I'll post the link to that. You can print them out yourself if you want to, and it won't cost you anything. Would you like to print them out and have them on actual playing cards, and in pretty damn good quality too, I might add? You can purchase these through artscow.com. And I only paid, what was it? It was, I think, $18 with shipping. If you go out on the web, you can find some ArtsCow coupon codes, or most of the time, if you go to the ArtsCow website, they usually have some sort of discount already going on, some big sale already going on. I got 30% off or 35% off my order, so it came out to be $13, and then with shipping, it was $18. Now, these do come from Hong Kong, by the way, and it took me, I want to say almost 3 weeks to get the cards. Probably more like 2 once they were actually created. So just be aware of that if you decide to order the fan expansion set to Forbidden Island. I would highly recommend picking these up. And if you don't have the Forbidden Island game, well, first obviously get this. Again, it's only about $15, but it's highly addictive, and I've absolutely fallen in love with the game. But once you've played this enough and you're like, okay, maybe I want a little bit more of a challenge, then I would recommend picking up the fan expansion set. Again, I'll post the link here in the video, so if you're interested in checking it out, you can have the link there. I would highly recommend picking this up. Like I said, I think it overall it adds quite a bit to the game, even just for the variant deck cards alone, just to set up the board in a different pattern, which just varies and changes the style of gameplay. That alone, I think, is worth the price of picking up the fan expansion. So, or at the very least, checking it out on BoardGameGeek.com, where you can also just view the cards if you want to see how to set them up in a specific order. So overall, I think it's a very nice fan expansion, and if you own Forbidden Island, it will greatly increase the amount of play value that you have with it. So yeah, that's it. That's my review of the fan expansion for Forbidden Island. So if you don't have the game, highly recommend going to pick it up.